Hi everybody. Today I've got one final modification that I'd like to test out on this Highbanker before I think I'm ready to, draw out the details of the final model. So I'm just going to show you what's going on here. Right now, this screen here is a curved screen, and the idea is that it's a little shallower here. So when there's a bit of velocity coming off of here, it hits a shallower screen. And then this area right along between my fingers is where the screen's at the correct angle of repose, where if gravel's sitting on it, it tumbles off the edge. And then from here down, it's actually too steep. So because the water's already kind of moving in this direction, the actual water likes to skip over the surface of the screen at this point and off the end rather than going down deep. So I would need to essentially just flatten that out. And then of course, the distance from here to here, if I know that that is the correct angle, why don't I just use that angle as my curve? But you see that's hardly curved. I actually had to cut this with a jigsaw to make that curved angle. So if it's going to be so little curve anyways, why don't I just take some flat bar and see if I make a flat screen. The advantage of the curved screen really is that if you don't know exactly the right angle to get it to, you're going to hit that angle at some point along the screen. Whereas if I'm able to put a hinge point right here and actually set this so I can have this at exactly the angle I need, then why not just have the whole screen at exactly that correct angle? That's what I'm going to be testing out in this video. We'll get shoveling some rocks in here at the end, and we'll see if I'm able to take advantage of a little bit higher percentage of this screen area instead of letting this bottom section just sort of go to waste. The other thing I'm doing is just optimizing my angles. So the angle that I'm running my sluice, I've run it at 1 inch per foot slope. I've run it at actually close to 2 inches per foot slope. Did surprisingly well. Pop and Son says 1.5 inches. I'm being very, very slightly conservative there. I'm going to go to 1 inch and 3/8 per foot slope. Essentially, I'm doing a 6.5 degrees slope for the main box. And knowing that, I'm going to raise this up because just the way I was setting it for the screen, trying to get the screen at the right angle, this didn't line up. So I'm going to get this to the correct angle, and then I'm going to take a drill. I'm going to get rid of this piece here, everything out of the inside. I'm going to replace it with a screen that is at the average angle I measured right here where it seems to be working well. And then I'm going to put a pivot point here so that I can adjust that screen separately to the hopper, get our final angles all figured out at the river, what's optimal. And then once I've got that, that's when I actually get a piece of paper and pen everything out. And if I know this is actually the angle I want here, and this is actually the angle I want here, that's when I can decide how tall this needs to be, how long this needs to be. You can see there's the old curve, that little dotted line. You can sort of see it right behind what I'm holding here. And if we come in here, the old screen in this top section, so between that arrow and that arrow, your average angle here, that was that 24 degrees. Now, if I take that average angle and I move it all the way down, set this way down here, there's your 24 degrees. So, does it actually need to be 26 degrees? Maybe. Either way, the section from this arrow to that arrow, you can see much steeper compared to that. That's where water was sort of, and especially at the very bottom, water was just starting to slough off. So by using this single screen angle, I've also lowered where I can put the hopper, because the hopper used to have to be up here to dump onto the screen. Now the hopper can be down there because this can now sit, say, 1.5 inches lower, or this can sit at the same height as it always used to, but I can bring the screen out significantly further, giving me more screen area to handle larger water volumes. I've got it gently mocked up here. I believe this hopper is too shallow of an angle. I'm gonna have a peek at my notes from before and set this at the correct angle. And right here where my pivot is going to be, I've got a little spacer between the hopper and the screen so that I'll actually be able to, pivot this without it pinching up against the screen. But first I've just got to sort of put it in the correct position that should work, and then I'll drop my bolt through there where the pivot's going to be. Screen is now flat here, and you can see on the side here where this line is parallel to the current screen. That's the angle that the screen used to be at the top. But then when the screen got steeper down here and even steeper at the bottom, we're no longer losing out on that space. So you can see how this works. I believe it's going to be 24 degrees is our start point, but I will make this adjustable so that out in the field I can dial it in if it needs to be 26 or 27 degrees, whatever it is. So this bolt is a little bit long, but comes with a lock nut here, and it's not really going to get in the way. Obviously, if this was a production version, I would purchase the custom length bolts. I used hot glue for these last time, and apparently that did not work very well. So we're going with some shoe goo, part of the research and development. And this is basically just a time saver out in the field. I've got one on each side, and importantly, I've got one hidden on the other side of this so that my left and right level, really easy to just visually be like, yep, that's where I need to be. Just before I go out to the river and actually test this screen out, I decided to weigh everything that I'm bringing out. So let's go over it. Right here, you've got some tubs for cleanouts, which are very light, but these hoses, which I really like, you absolutely need at least the intake hose, 6.1 kilograms or 13.4 pounds. Yes, you need a shovel, 1.5 kilograms. I bring about 60 feet of 1.5 lay flat hose. I have this in 3 different lengths, a 30, a 20, and a 10, and I can sort of interchange depending on what I need. 7 kilograms, 15.4 pounds. The Highbanker itself, right here, with both levels, with the metal, with the miner's moss, with that metal grate up here, the intake bar, everything, not actually that bad, 15.7 kilograms or just under 35 pounds. And of course, you do need a motor. This engine here is a WX15 pump, full of gas and oil, 11.4 kilograms or 25 pounds. This special frame here is included, but the old frame was actually quite heavy, and I think I only added about 1 pound when I did that. That's just an extra muffler. So your grand total of all of the mining gear, 41.6 kilograms or 91.5 pounds. And of that weight, of the total, like not including lunch, but this is everything that I need to mine for gold. Of that weight, 38% of that is in the Highbanker. So having a light Highbanker is definitely helpful. And 27% of that comes from the pump. So there's room to save a little bit. I could bring a little bit less lay flat hose. You could get the WX10 pump, and it's capable at full throttle of pretty much putting out what this Highbanker can handle. So you would need a slightly narrower Highbanker in order to, get that weight savings. But I think it's like 13 pounds instead of 20 pounds. It's like the stock pump. So this is pretty much it. But considering everything is under 100 pounds, like all the mining gear, and that is everything you need for like 2 people to heavily shovel. This is not a backpackable, and that's kind of what I'm demonstrating here, is just because the box is super light, you are going to need 2 trips, right? So you have the weight here. How are you going to divide that up? Maybe between you and a friend. There you go. I was a little torn about coming out to the river today just to see how my Highbanker handles gravel instead of, going and searching for gold. But look at that water. Look at the sun. I mean, it's a drive-in location. I'm near a bridge, so I'm hearing traffic, but this is just gorgeous today. Might as well get set up. I'm confirming that the box is level according to these levels, and this is set in the hole for a 26-degree screen angle, and I just used the app on my phone and measured this is 26 degrees. So everything should work as far as a test rig. Let's go fire up that pump, see how this handles gravel at 26 degrees on the screen. It's incredibly shallow all the way out into this water today. And so this shallow water intake, you can see I've basically just got half a finger worth of water on top here. And essentially it's designed to suck water from the bottom of this pipe, and then as it goes further out, I bring the holes up to the top. So there's sort of like a little like top area here that doesn't have any holes, so you don't get a whirlpool sucking right here. Just spreads it out throughout the entire thing. Also, it's got window mesh on there, so I don't have to worry about minnows or anything going up the pump. And we are ready to fire this thing up. It's about 40 gallons per minute coming off the end of the sluice. And gain 1.5 foot per slope on the main box. This is the screen running 26 degrees. There's just a little bit of water, but it's just barely coming over the screen here. It actually looks like a decent amount of that water is coming from my gold fingers here, maybe that needing to be modified. But as far as what's coming off the top of the actual screen, I'd say we're doing pretty good at 26 degrees. Let's see how it handles gravel. So in this situation, water's traveling through the top of the screen, sitting down here, but when the next bit of gravel comes, it pushes everything off. Filtering through this gravel, there's more water coming over the screen now than there was before. I probably wouldn't want to go much shallower than this. What I'm doing right now using tools is something I'd like to get away from, which is why if I can dial this angle in, maybe I can avoid you guys needing tools out in the field and just give you a preset angle on this screen. Okay, 23 degrees. This should start packing up a fair bit, so let's see how it handles. Without anything here, you can see whatever's skipping off that screen is very similar to what was there before. See how it takes the shovel. I'm going to try dropping it down one more. So I would say 20 degrees, we've definitely flattened out too much. Let's go up from here. 29 degrees. This gravel, without the water flow, is still just sort of sitting on the screen. I wouldn't say we're getting water coming off the screen in any serious way right now. It's still just kind of sloughing off from underneath. That's something I'll work on the next design. See how it takes a shovel at 29.
29 degrees. That looks pretty good to me. Let's go higher, see how far we can push this thing. 32 degrees now. Maybe a little bit of water is still kind of waving down this stream, but the majority is just underneath. So I'd say the screen is still effective here at 32 degrees. Okay, let's go up to the highest setting I have available right now, which would be 35 degrees, and see how the screen handles the water shedding. Okay, this is our steepest angle right now of 35 degrees. Now if I just sort of pull this out here, water's splashing around a little bit. I wouldn't say we're bleeding water like crazy, but there's definitely water dripping off the end of the screen that wasn't dripping off before. Yeah, so I wouldn't really want the screen to go much steeper than this, but it's definitely shedding material just fine, and I don't have like a river of water coming over the edge. Remember, there's about 40 US gallons per minute coming out that end of the sluice. I'd say that's pretty acceptable. So now I'm going to set the screen back down to my reference setting, which was 26 degrees. And from 26 degrees, that's where I know all of the angles on the back here. So I'm going to go through those in the hopper, and we're going to see how the hopper performs as well. Now with all these tests here today, there's various considerations, even when it comes to spray bar. For example, if you have a flatter hopper and the spray bars are down the sides, you're going to have more dwell time with loose sandy material, and it's not all going to dump in at the same time. I'm kind of skirting around that problem by having a bunch of miner's moss up here, which holds on to that sort of, you know, all the blonde sands and gravel just sloughs over the edge, but all the black sand kind of gets stuck and then bleeds slowly. So having this really breaks stuff apart more quickly, and that seems to be okay recovery wise, since I've had really good recovery on this box. But as far as the hopper, this is the steepest setting that I've currently got right here, and we're going to see how it handles, and then we're just going to go down, 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 and down. If you have that loose sandy material, you may have a hopper that's really quite flat, and you're always going to have some gravel in here that doesn't clear out. But when you add that next shovel, the gravel itself kind of increases the slope in the hopper, and you can kind of just be your own judge as to what you're aiming for up in the hopper area. But I still want to know what sort of a range that seems to work, and then I can combine that with what I've learned about the screen angle, which surprisingly is the first time I've ever actually done a test like this on this screen, to see all of the different angles in 3-degree increments, see how it handles. I'm actually glad I'm doing this, because the wheels are turning already. Let's bring you guys in to have a little look here. So what I'm noticing is that as far as the little stuff is concerned, it's the angle of this where it hits down here, it sort of holds everything above it up there, and when it hits further back here, it kind of pulls everything down. So with where it was just running, this sitting here is exactly what I want. I want a little bit of that shovel to get pushed to the back end, roll around until it comes out. But this was working perfectly at the higher setting, whereas right here, it's starting to, and like this isn't like an edge that really has to come over, but rocks like this should
pretty much just barely roll out of the sluice. As you can see here, again with my screen angle at 26 degrees, I would say the screen is a little bit on the shallow side. It obviously works because the next level of rocks just push this off, but I would like to go just a little bit steeper on the screen. So the majority of your hopper angle control actually comes from the spray bar angle, which is really interesting to know, which means that I don't actually need a huge range of adjustability on this hopper. I'm still going to have it, but it's running your spray bar in conjunction with the hopper angle that's going to give you exactly dialing in what you want. And then the screen angle, I definitely learned about that. So we'll take what we learned here today, and I can pen that up over the next few days to figure out exactly sort of the dimensions of the next iteration of this thing. Try to put this all together in just a slightly cleaner and more refined package. So just one more interesting thing I'd like to point out is the tips of these leg brackets. I've actually ground that to a slight point. So it's not a total point, but it's ground in a little bit. They used to have sort of like a hollow circle, like almost the width of the entire thing. And what was happening is when that was screwed in here and coming into contact with the leg, is it would actually, because the aluminum's soft, it would just add it would make it so there's a little bit more torque required to tighten and loosen these. So even though these are some pretty nice big wing nuts, you'd feel like you'd have to kind of push on it a little hard. And after this test with, you know, sand all over everything and a little bit messed up like this, I've noticed that sharpening that tip just a little bit really does help. It's less torque and it's just a little bit easier. So I'll be doing that to all of these bolts going forwards. Well, that was a beauty of a day out at the river. I might as well address it because I know you guys are just going to bring it up. But yeah, the gold in this location wasn't really worth writing home about. So I'm not going to be too concerned about what I actually found today. I was just interested in how the gravel was handling the various angles so that I can design the next iteration of this box. But regardless of the gold, any day spent out digging a little bit, getting a bit of exercise. I mean, look at this, guys. It's just beautiful out here today. So that'll be it for this video. I'll get to work, you know, drafting up that next version of this thing that's just a little bit one step closer to dialed in. I'm sure I could keep doing this for 10 years and the box would look different 10 years from now, but you got to start somewhere, and I think we're onto something good here. So we'll catch you in the next video. Until then, cheers and thank you for watching.